I want to thank you guys for carving out some time this morning to sit with us and learn about the new 8.8 software module that is set for imminent release for the ELAN/NICE control systems. For those of you guys that don't know, we've had this in beta for I think it's been a record amount of time. So this is a core module release that we have, for lack of better terms, beat the crap out of over the multiple beta cycles. So we're excited to roll this out to you. So without further ado, I'm Jeff Koplinski. I'm one of the hosts for today. The guy driving the bus, so to speak, is Mr. Larry Cramp. We're doing the majority of the presentation. And then we've got Ben Mahoney running things behind the scenes here, moderating. He set all this up. He is our Director of Education for NICE Group. This webinar is going to be recorded. It's going to be posted on the LMS learning site, so you guys will be able to go back and review that at your leisure. But again, I know we shot for 60 minutes on this. We're probably going to have some trouble fitting everything in the solid 60, so prepare. It may go a little bit over the allotted time. So without further ado, we'll kick it over to Mr. Cramp. Larry, go ahead, take it away.
All right. Well, we're going to start this off talking about the new configurator. Then we're going to talk about the updates to the new management cloud that support that. We're going to talk about some hardware, then the usual features and enhancements, drivers, and then we can go over some CER stuff. So the big deal with 8.8 is having a cross-platform configurator. Like, as you guys know, configurator was only Windows since its inception back in 2002. And we've been working on this for years and years and years, and we're finally at the stage to deliver it. Like our viewers, those are what we call a thin client, and they run on Windows and Mac. We did the same thing for configurator. So cross-platform, so no more using anything on Mac to dual boot. You could just launch this. So it is dual platform, Mac and PC. There's a couple other things though. Extender management. So as you guys know, if you had an extender, you'd have to log into that extender and then configure it. And then there's things that you'd have to do that you'd have to continually log into that extender. But that's no longer the case. Now you can do all your extender management from the configurator itself using the primary controller. Custom pages, a lot has changed here. You can just see here's an image. It is what we call WYSIWYG, so what you see is what you get. And instead of just being a square box that says weather, you actually see the weather and the videos and anything else like that. Now, on this image, I put a button on top of an image, which in config v1, you guys know that was a no-no. You can't overlap items because we don't know what the depth perception is. So, but now we do. So that's why I added that picture there. A lot has changed with the logs too, and I think this is going to help everybody on this call. So when you see an exception log, and it's something that you need to keep track of, I would take a screenshot of it, right, and then send it off to whoever I need to do that to. But now there is an export button, so you can export the logs and then send them to tech support or whomever or an RTS. So that's a big improvement there. We also track configuration changes. So this is more for Management Cloud, but you can see here in the configurator, there's a log now, and you can see when changes were made, and that will help. The way that we handle Lua, those are our third-party drivers, even though we use that for internal drivers too. There's been a lot of changes here, so let's talk about these. So drivers such as Samsung, LG, those drivers are our drivers, and we created them in Lua. And when there's an update to the driver, you have to go into that driver and press the update button. And that just didn't really fly with how every other thing works, drivers that we make. So we made it now so that, and there is updates with 8.8 to these. When you run 8.8 or anything after that, it'll update the Lua drivers for you automatically, the ELAN Lua drivers. So that's helpful. One other thing we did is A lot of the times for media devices, media source devices, you might have a UI that the device comes in with, and you modify that, and then you want to update it. Problem is, when you update it, it reverts back to how it is from the factory, from whoever developed it. We have this button here that's the disable UI, so you can click that button, update the driver, and then the UI will not change. I think that's a vast, great improvement. One other thing, because V8 V2 is cross-compatible with Mac, the way that Mac works is a lot different than Windows. So what we used to do is you have to set a folder, put all your drivers in a folder, and then they would always kind of be there. Can't really do that now. So what we do is that there's an import button, and you can see that right in the middle of the screen. When you click that import button, you can navigate to any folder structure that you want. So in a way, it's better because you're not bound to having one folder that you have to keep all your files in, all your drivers in for each controller to find. So you could just navigate how you would and find drivers, and you can organize them in different folders and all that stuff. So, and that the import button is located, everywhere you'd add a driver, whether it's in a driver or a communication device. Same when you update a driver, you have to find it. So you can keep old versions of drivers, new versions of drivers. I kind of think it's better, but it is a difference. So I just wanted to point that out. Backups on V2 are much better. They save the network settings, the time zone, the weather, and any custom artwork or icons that you did. Now this is very important. 8.8 config V2 is only compatible with EBK2 files. So config V1 files, backups which are EBKs, need to use config V1 or classic configurator to restore them. So you're going to need to use config V1 or have that available at times if you want to restore. So that you should do is update a controller to 8.8 and then make a backup from 8.8, which is the EBK2. So that is the recommended pathway for this. A couple other changes here. The MAC address is inside the basic settings, and that's very useful because you kind of need that for licensing instead of using another scanning tool to get that. It's right here. Also, the controller mode, you see it says primary. That's because the verbiage has changed. So we used to call the main controller the master controller, but it is now the primary controller. And there's some other verbiage in the configurator that has changed to follow suit with that change from master to primary. All right, some things to note. So one is on VIF profiles, we will load everything the camera has, and you can enable or disable versus hide and show. Remote users has been removed from config V2, so any device that is launched or a viewer that connects to an 8.8 controller will, in the V2, it'll be just listed under the touchscreen devices. Again, on the backups, config V2 is only compatible with EBK2s. There is no layout mode that requires V1 still. Custom media source import. So there's some changes around how this works. It's good for anything that was for exported in IR sources. You could do. Serial ones still require V1. And the location of where the OSD on the primary controller is enabled and disabled is located under the interface OSD, not its own place at the very bottom of that tab. So there's a couple things to note.
And config V1 still be available. So yeah, it will still be available, and it's actually going to be a necessity. To Larry's point, the config V2 is firmware related. So anything running the new 8.8 will then be able to do config V2. So that answers another question that just rolled in. As long as it's running the 8.8 or higher firmware, you'll be able to access that controller using the V2. But the V1 we're still going to need for your controller upgrades or your migrations. If you're going from an older platform, an SC10, or G1 up to a 100 or 300, obviously that's going to be in the old backup format where you're going to need to do config V1 to do that restore. But then once that's brought up to the 8.8 or newer, then everything can go for V2 moving forward. So there's going to be a little bit of an overlap here where the V1 and V2 are going to be both, necessary, kind of like a lot of you guys still using G tools in conjunction with the new management cloud. Will remote core modules updates be easier with config V2? Yes, extremely faster. You guys will notice we've always kind of frowned on the remote updates, and as you guys probably noticed over the past 6 months or so, if you've tried to do remote update, which we technically say is unsupported anyway, it was taking forever, a lot longer, right? So moving forward, everything deploys from the cloud, so it's a lot faster. We actually emphasize you using that tool, using the remote update feature of this, because instead of going to a peer-to-peer update, we're going from cloud directly to the controller. So it is Larry, dare I say it's just as fast as doing it locally.
I would agree.
With the new architecture. Why don't we keep on trucking, Larry? As the questions come in, we'll curate a couple of them at the next break.
Well, as Jeff alluded to, this next section is going to be talking about Management Cloud 1.5. So 8.8 goes out this week. Management Cloud 1.5 goes with it because it's necessary. You got to have both of them to get all these cool things. So the first thing about Management Cloud 1.5 is that it's cross-platform too. It is PC and Mac, which is necessary if you have a cross-platform configurator, right? Management Cloud gives you the access to launch config V2. It's the only application you have. So those guys that are using the older applications, they're not going to have a config V2 button. So you need Management Cloud 1.5 to do that because that has the support for the configuration V2. An OTA version control. We talked about this, and this is kind of what it looks like. So right now, beta is live. The release is not live yet, so it's grayed out. But once we go live with the 8.8, which is this week, so this is what it looks like. You press that button, and then it sends everything to the controller to go. It is super fast, and it's super convenient too. Native Bluebolt support is in here. So you can actually take your Bluebolt devices and learn them into Management Cloud and use this one tool to kind of do both things. PowerLink, so we added that a couple core modules ago under the Utilities tab, but PowerLink support is here now. You can see here for this, it's a touch panel, I have it is linked to PowerLink, and from Management Cloud, I can now reboot that device without having to log into the controller and then do it through Utilities. I think that's a powerful thing. Improvements for the search and filters. So in some cases, the search worked better in some areas than others. So now it's much better all the way across. Video notes filter and the global search as well. Of course, with every release of software, there's always significant performance improvements, and this is no exception here. And same with the general UI UX improvements and status icons. We implemented those, location lists and card view updates, and the device history. And then this isn't really new, but I'm going to throw it in anyways because I like it. It's the marketplace. That's where all of our third-party drivers are hosted. We have this new release section, and then every time the new driver comes up, it's always in there. So you should check this, especially as 8.8 comes out, and we'll talk about the HR40 soon. So in this release, we have partnered with Autonomic, and joining us today is Michael, and we're going to go through this, and then we're going to answer a lot of questions, I'm assuming. So that's the deal. And then this makes a lot of sense, I think, for all of us, and you'll see what we did here. So what we did is we now offer the MMS 1, 3, and 5, the streamers on our portal, as well as the advanced music bridge. So those 4 SKUs are available on our portal. And at a glance, you got the 1E, which is a single stream, the 3E, which is a 3, the 5, which is a 5 stream, pretty basic stuff. But the A and B, that's a pretty cool piece. That's stands for Advanced Music Bridge. And what it has is it gives you the ability to run Apple Music, Calm Radio. And what we did is we created a ground up new driver. We call it Autonomic Premium. Now, this driver has a license. It's $99 MSRP. And why we did that is because you can buy Autonomic from anywhere you want. You can buy it from them, from different distributions, or there's people that have it in the field. So if you buy a unit from us, it comes with the license. That's important. And then you could buy the license if you want to buy and use the Autonomic hardware from somewhere else. And the Autonomic Classic driver is still available. All right, so now let's get into the Autonomic music streaming stuff. There's they have a lot of different services, including Apple Music. This is a image of the new integration, and we spent a lot of time developing this, and we took a lot of feedback from over the last couple of years to try to work all that in. So that's what it looks like. Now let's get into some of the details here. The favorites. So we really want to focus on favorites. Why favorites? Because favorites are the easiest way to listen to music. As an end user, I just want to listen to what I want to listen to, and I want to search often for things. I use mine every day, and I have a list of 10 to 15 favorites, and that's it, one button press. So there's a favorite button on the bottom, and when you see that, that's the image you get. So instead of just text, it's actually much better looking than that. We also added favorites from the zone page itself. So if you go to a zone page, it would just be a list of sources. And then in there, we would also have the favorites that would just be listed in there. So we have a filter now. So you have the sources, which is the actual devices. Then you have favorites. And as you can see here, it's the same good-looking icons that you can hit and start playing immediately one of the favorites. To add a favorite, there's a big button on the bottom of the favorites screen in the main UI. A couple things about this. First of all, the favorites are alpha. They're sorted numeric alpha. So numeric first, then A to Z. If I save a favorite from a UI, so say my Office touchscreen, if I hit save, it adds the favorite to this specific zone, right? If I go to different zones, so I have another touch panel in my kitchen, that favorite on the main page isn't going to be there. It'll be in the UI for the streamer, but not on that main zone page. And then we did this, and you can add it. So you can go into favorites here, hit that gear button, and then you'll be able to add the favorites and remove favorites that you want specifically to make it more room-based, right? And we did this because if you have a lot of screens in a house, and some of these houses are very large, if you add a favorite in your room or a kid's room, right, you wouldn't want that favorite to go everywhere usually, and it would be more work to remove it than to just add it in the areas that you want. So that's how you do that, and that's expected behavior. You can modify. If you press and hold a favorite, you will get the option to rename it. And, you could do that. And now you know how they're sorted by numeric alpha, so you can actually move them around based upon that. You can also save a favorite from a play queue. So if you have a lot of local music, you create a play queue, you can save that. And I do have that. But what I also like is that you see on the left-hand side that the shuffle, that also saves. So if I click the shuffle button, and then click the create favorite from the play queue, what that'll do is every time I instantiate that favorite, the shuffle will come on to, and that I love. Search. So what we did is we implemented a global search. So right on the main UI, there's a search, and what that does is pops up that screen, and you can enter anything you want. So in here you see I entered Billy Joel. And what that'll do is that'll search across all the services that I have that are active on my account, and it starts with the first one, which of course is Amazon. So A starts first, and it'll give you everything: top album, top stations, top artists, and then I'll go through the different services. Then there's the browse menu. So there's a lot of logic here. So what we did before is have the main UI was kind of littered with a whole bunch of different icons depending on how many services you had, and it was, we did that to have the quick access there, but then it just looked cluttered. But then we added some secret sauce of how we navigate. Some of these services have lots of sub menus. So what we did is we have a memory now for these, and we also added recently tuned. So take a look at this video. What it's going to show you is as I'm going into a menu, I'm going to select something, right? I'm going through the different options that it has, genres. Here we go, classic rock, and then I'll select another subcategory, which is 80s, and then here I go. And then you can see we automatically go back to the now playing. But when I click browse again, it goes right back to where I was. So I could just switch to 60s. I don't have to navigate all those steps down. That's the special sauce. And I couldn't really say that without showing it. So hopefully that did the trick. But yeah, so that's the deal with the browse menu, and doing that creates a super slick, quick, and nice way to navigate even deep menus because of the memory. Cleaned up the transport controls. There used to be a whole bunch of controls on there. We keep them basically however the service is. So we can have thumbs up, thumbs down. We can have the shuffle and repeat, or just the skip. So depending on the transport that's available by the service. In the overflow menu. So on the service itself, there's the 3 dots. So you do that. You can view whatever it is that's playing at the time. And that's I think that's really cool. Another thing we did is we enabled multiple accounts for the Autonomic Premium driver. So you can see here on the very top, this is again inside, well, Sirius in this case, but in any of the streaming services, if you have multiple accounts, you'll have this top bar, and then you can press that and drop it down and select a different account. The cool thing is we can also link the account to a person. And why is that cool? So in this case, the account owner is me, Larry, right? And what I could do is then, so I set up a user, right, for whatever service that allows that, and I can set it to the account owner, and that's me or whoever is in your system, right? Then I can go into the registration for the UIs, and for my PC, I will set the device owner to me. So whenever I navigate to a service from my PC, or for end users for their mobile devices, so if they have a kid that has his own account, you can set the registration to be his phone, his mobile device. Then whenever he's navigating, or his touch panel if he's got one in his room, then whenever he navigates to play music, it'll always go to his account when he navigates music first. So it starts on his account. He can switch it, of course, but that I think is a huge feature.
Yeah, Larry, if I could pop in here, that multiple user thing is probably one of my most favorite things of this driver. You know, I'm sure a lot of you guys have get calls from the client where they'd say, hey, my let's use Spotify, for example. My Spotify stream stopped. It said, content paused. It's being used elsewhere. So many of these end users, and have family plans with these streaming services, but they're only putting one user into the ELAN system. So if Dad's grilling out back and got some music playing in the outdoor audio, and little Jimmy's getting out of high school and coming home and keys onto that Spotify, what happens? It interrupts the stream. So now the fact that little Jimmy can have his own keyed on anytime that he accesses the ELAN system from his mobile device, it automatically just loads in his profile, as well as Dad, Mom, and whatever. This is huge. It's something I've been messing with here at home, and I'm not getting texts from the wife with stuff stopping anymore, because now everyone's got their own.
And the key is linking these different user accounts to different people in the configurator, and then you could actually link the different devices, so their mobile devices or their touchscreens in the room, so they don't have to constantly and they forget to switch the user. It's automatic, and that's really the secret sauce.
Yeah, and it's really important to know that we can do this by device, but we can also do this by user. You know, on the ITPs, if you guys are using facial rec or a 4-digit PIN to unlock based on what user's doing it, little Jimmy walks up to the touch panel, it recognizes him, it'll load his profile versus mom or dad. So it's don't think of it just device, but we also take this a little bit deeper and go into the user.
Yeah, it's really awesome. All right. So another thing that we did here is we added all the services to the viewer. Under the password protected viewer, you can have access to the services so that an end user can go in and add an account or change the password, whatever they need to do. So they don't have to constantly um, get access to the device or have the dealer do it for them. So that helps a bit. Setup. The setup with the Classic was fine, but we enhanced it. So what we did a bunch of stuff here. So what we did is we added Auto Discover, Auto Configure to the Autonomic product. So you can see here, it just shows up as installed. Now, if you install it here using Auto Discover, Auto Configure, and you have multiple boxes, so say you have 3 MMS1s, what it'll do is it'll add all 3 as one device family. And what that means is that they'll all sync up the services across all 3 and the favorites. So if I store a favorite on box 1, it'll go to box 2 and 3, and then it'll sync up. So, and you can still enable these devices or add them singly if you don't want that feature. But if you do it from here, they will all be synced up. Also, the firmware update. So when there's a new firmware that comes out for an Autonomic box, we will show it, right? And then we will have a button there that says update the firmware, and then you go. So you can do that all from the configurator. Button we added for reboot the server. Again, a lot of this stuff is only in config v2. So in order to get this, obviously you need 8.8, but you also need to use config v2, which means you need to use Management Cloud 1.5. So G-Tools will not let you do this. So Autonomic Premium supports the 1E, the 3E, the 5E, and the AMB. It will not support the older, the non-E units. I think it was A's. But yeah, so the AMB, just so you guys know, is a device that adds on to it connects to the network and it just adds the ability. So you still need a streamer, and that just adds functionality to that streamer. All right, that was a lot. So let's pause here and let's take some questions.
Yeah, Larry, I think the first thing we should kind of go over is, and I don't know if we have a slide in it or we went over this, but how this licensing is going to work when purchased through the NICE dealer portal. Yep. So these features that we're showing here. So now just to clarify here, there's going to be our normal driver. That's not going away, right? You know, that'll have your old navigation means, everything you guys are used to, how Autonomic and pretty much every streamer that we've integrated with navigates by itself. That's still in play, right? But this premium driver enables all of these additional features that we're going on here. So as it's been said, these products are available on the NICE portal. And when you purchase a streamer through the NICE portal, it comes with the license. It's a promo we're running. So when you buy a streamer, it comes with the premium license. There's a different drop down in the configurator. You're going to have Autonomics Premium, and then you'll have the traditional Autonomics there based on what you wanted to deploy. The nice thing about this is we're also going to have the licensings available for purchase, a la carte, right? So guys, those of you that have been using Autonomics for years, so you can go back to these systems, update them to 8.8, and just purchase this license, throw the license onto the controller, and bring that to life with all these new features that we're showing here. So I just wanted to, this is a license architecture for us to get all these new features, and it's one per hardware piece. So those of you that are doing, 3 or 4 MMS1Es in a system, that would require you 4 licenses. If you've got a 5E or a 3E with multiple streams, you would only need 1 license. So you want to pair the license with the hardware piece, okay? It's not stream specific.
First of all, thank you for having me. And I just want to say this integration looks really great. We are so excited to be bringing this out. I see that there's a lot of questions regarding the AMB. and for new Autonomic users, which I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, it's kind of a new concept. So the Advanced Music Bridge is an add-on piece to an existing MMS. So any of the MMSs, the 1, 3, and the 5, those are going to be the devices that are actually outputting the audio. And those have been around for a few years. The Advanced Music Bridge was something we released last year, and that was a way to kind of bridge the gap and develop next generation features for our current and newly installed systems. So the A&B simply sits on the network, and it provides the Apple Music, Radio, and it also expands local library support for an MMS system. So to use that, you would build out your MMSs based on your stream requirements. And then you would add an A&B if you require the Apple Music and the Radio or larger library. The way the A&B works specifically for Apple Music is it gives you 2 streams of Apple Music. So that means if you have an MMS 5e and you have an A&B on it, you can stream 2 different outputs of Apple Music from 2 different accounts. And then on the other 3 streams, you could do any of the other services. All of our products, the MMSs and the A&B, are all scalable. So you could add multiple 1Es, you could add a 3 and a 5, and it's all just going to sum up and act as one big streamer. And the A&B is no different. So if you want 4 streams of Apple Music, you could have 2 of them, and it will talk to all the different MMSs on the system. You could have 4 1Es and 2 A&Bs, and they're all going to work harmoniously.
The HR40 is our new remote control. It is compatible with the G1, SC2, so last generation controllers and this generation controllers. So we can see the hard buttons. I want to take a zoom in on the hard buttons. The button combination that we have, the hard buttons, work really well for most devices. And the screen. So talk about the screen. I want to bring up something here. So right there at the bottom of the screen, those are 3 capacitive touch buttons. And they actually work really, really well. So we got the media button, a home button, and a num button. We added a num button. When you press that, it shows the numeric buttons on top of the touchscreens. I do use numbers personally, and that actually works out really, really well. So some of the features you'll read about: capacitive touch, the backlit buttons. Now this is one. This is a good one. This one. This is one of Jeff's favorites. When the old remotes were sleeping and you pressed the play button or pause button, right? It would wake the remote up, but it wouldn't send the command out. It would just do one action. So you had to press it twice for that to work. So now that's been corrected. So now if the remote is screen's off and all that stuff, you press the pause button, it will actually wake the remote up and press the pause. Integrated voice control. Now it's Alexa at launch. More to follow. There is a remote finder, and we'll talk about all these in a little bit more of a detail. It does the camera viewing with intercom audio. It has a built-in IR blaster, wireless configuration, and it's 2.4. All right, here's a couple of screen grabs here. Supported subsystems, so it's a lot more than the current HR10 and HR30, which are really just a home media lighting, climate and security. So here's a couple images. So this is what it looks like when you're on the media page, as you would assume. As big as of an image as we can get, and then if you tap the cover art, the screen will flip around, and then you can get the thumbs up, thumbs down. Instead of adding the thumbs up, thumbs down there, we'd have to make the screen smaller. So what we did is because the pause and the skip are hard buttons on the remote, so you're really just missing a couple buttons that you don't use that much. We want to keep the cover art as big as possible. So if you tap the cover art, you get those options, and then you get the option to save that favorite image to overwrite it. So that's that. And then the zone page, that's how it works. And the cool thing is when you're in that zone page, the exact picture to the right, you can use the hat switch on the remote and scroll up and down, and then you can hit select to get to it. Lighting. So in the HR10 and HR30, you got to create different lighting pages. Well, now we just use areas just like we would on a mobile device. So you can see it's consistent. So if you're using the HR40 versus a mobile device versus an ITP, the screen is the same. Video, yes. So we do have the live video does come through the HR40. I actually like this a lot. And you can select a screen, and then you get the bigger image, and then anything associated with that image, like if you had lights or whatever, you can do that too. Intercom. Yes, the Wi-Fi on this is always on. Unlike the previous remotes, which they would go to sleep and then the Wi-Fi would turn off, but now they are on all the time. Why this is important is to answer doors or receive calls from another viewer in a house. You can call this device like it's it's a regular intercom device, and you could answer it with video. If you want to see their video, answer it. If you don't want to see their video, or decline the call. There's no camera on the remote, so you can't send video, right? That's the homepage, and the reason why I'm showing this is, again, to show that we support more subsystems than the current HR10s and HR30s. Utilities. So that's a new subsystem for us from a couple core modules ago, but we added that here too, and it looks really good. Those gauges look pretty nice. Climate, you can see how that looks there. Security is the same way. Now, the big thing about this remote, I think, is that, well, besides all the other stuff, there's a lot of big things about this remote, let's be honest. But the pairing, so in the previous remotes, HR10, 30, 200, all of them, you had to have a USB to do anything, right? But that is no longer the case. There is no USB required. So if you're pairing it to the Wi-Fi, you just uncheck that box there, and then you get this page where you would select a Wi-Fi, and there's an on-screen keyboard, and then you would just enter the credentials and off and running. Now, if you're doing it via direct, which is also supported, so if I'm talking HR40 to a controller directly, you don't need a USB either. What you need to do is go into the configurator. So get that pin that's under network. See that AP pin? Get that. And then in the HR40, you would go into that same screen you were just at. Instead of clicking a Wi-Fi for the home or residence, you would just click AP pin and enter that number, and it'll go and find that controller and pair to it. The favorite buttons. I like the favorite buttons. I think they're really awesome. But this remote can be used in multiple zones. So one of the things we added was an option box there for a different for a zone. The idea here is that, so there's two favorite buttons on the remote, 1 and 2. If button 1 is always toggling the lights that are in a room, so if I'm in the living room, I have the favorite 1 button turning on and off the lights. Well, if I'm in the family room, I want to turn the lights off in the family room, not the living room, right? So what we did is we made the event map buttons so you can do it by the zone that the remote is in. So I can still have favorite button 1 turn the lights off of the active zone. To me, this is a huge feature, because as you're walking around and changing zones, so if I'm using this in my living room versus family room, it doesn't matter. Favorite 1 is always going to turn the lights off in the room that I'm in. I think that's huge. And then there's some drop downs here for some quick other lighting things. So if you're doing event maps, you could do that cool stuff. But you could just do, if you're not moving it around different rooms, then you could just make that favorite button, or one of the 2 favorite buttons, switch to a different scene or room toggle without doing the event maps. And then the jump tos. As you can see there, there's a direct jump to. So if you want a favorite button to jump right to a page, you could do that. I show this. Basically, there's some ways to set the remote up so it does different things. The media button, the capacitive touch media button, will always take you to the live whatever's playing, or the list of devices that are playing. But the soft media button, the one under the home page, can be set up to do the same thing, and that's native. Or you could have it set up, you uncheck that box to do this, which is basically a zone page. So you can have them do slightly different things, and it depends on how you use it. But this would, for me, this worked better. This is the first time we've done this. So because the hard buttons, they're limited now, we wanted to give you some more flexibility there. And what we did is we did a press and hold option. So natively, it's just the standard press and release for the buttons. But in this case, what we did is we added a press and hold option. So you can see under the, and this is by the source device. So if you go to the source device and you go here where you would normally have an assignment for the buttons, you now have HR40 behavior. So you can see default, right? But below that is override split. And that is what gives you the option to do a press and hold. So this remote, the HR40, has a skip back and skip forward hard button. But what it does not have is a fast forward or rewind button. So what I did for my use case was I did a override split, which is enabling the press and hold, and I have the regular button do skip back, skip forward. But when it's held, it does rewind and fast forward. So that does make a very good use case for doing extra things on the remotes. So the press and hold is roughly around 2 seconds, and then it enables that. But usually, what we do if you're holding fast forward, we reinitiate or resend the fast forward IR command, so that if there's multiple things that does, so just know that does not happen when you do a press and hold. It's just once and done. Here's what the sleep timer looks like. Again, we refined it. Instead of just being numbers that you select, 30, 60, 90, 120, we have the roll wheel, so you can roll it up, select it, and then you can see on the right side it tells you how much time you have left. The guide. So if you're using TV media, you can add a second page. In this case, you can see I added a page to my cable box, and then I had it set to guide. And then you get the guide on the top, and then you can scroll up and down. Cool, right? But there's a checkbox that if you're using TV media, there's a checkbox, enable now playing. So if you use the guide, this actually has changed the way I actually scroll TV. And you can see what is playing when you select that from the guide. So if I hit Comedy Central from the guide, it goes to this page on the remote, which is awesome. So it tells me details of the actual show, an image of the actual show, and everything. Then again, that's only when you navigate from the guide feature and you're using TV media, which is North America only. So this is the number page, right? So if you hit the capacitive touch buttons, this is the page that you'll get on the touchscreen. And again, that was a way for us to circumvent the hard buttons for the numeric buttons being missing. But you have some options here. Button 2, that's the clear enter. That's native. That's how that was on all remotes. But if you can override that if you want to be a different button on those two. The settings. So right now there's settings. The settings icon in the home page, but you can use this. Put it in the home page or put it in the power menu. That's if you press and hold the power button on the remote. That's where you get the options for the sleep timer, but you can have the settings menu in there too, so it's not cluttered with the home page. Personally, I didn't like it there, so mine's on the power menu. Also, that's what's on the settings page. You have the option to clean screen. You can change the brightness of the screen and the buttons, change the volumes. The themes, you can change the themes here. You can modify your channel groups, which is useful with the new guide features. And then there's advanced settings, which is voice stuff. Push to talk. So when you're answering your door station, you can use, and I think the default is to set up this way, is to use the push to talk feature. And then what that'll do is that the side button, the button on the side of the remote that's for voice, that will be the button that you use to talk to the front door, or you can use. And the Find My Remote. So instead of putting a button on the base, we found it much better to put the button on the viewers. So what you're going to do is you can take your phone, go to the ELAN app, you go into settings, you go to Find My Remote, and you find the remote that you're looking for. You hit the locate button, and then the remote will make noises and all that stuff. But since I'm on my phone, I can just do that. I don't have to go to a screen or go to the base. I could just do it right from my mobile device or from a touchscreen if I want to prefer. Then you can stop it from the actual remote, hit the button on it, and it'll stop the find. Or you can do it from the mobile device as well. All right, there's a lot of other features. Those are just two of the big features, or three of the big features, but there's a lot more. So localized video servers. So if an end user was wanted to watch a camera on his mobile device when he wasn't at home, so not local, then the video would go to the cloud, which would be one of these 4 servers, and then back to their mobile device. But we added more servers. So we added one in the Asia Pacific region and one in Europe, which will really speed things up. Again, I want to talk about the over-the-air updates because it is so cool and so awesome, and it's so fast. I felt like it was worth talking about one more time. We added native Z-Wave via the extender controller. Now, note that the extender must be on Ethernet, not Wi-Fi, and the device limit of 50 is still the same. But if I have 2 or 3 extenders, I could use those extenders and plug in that Z-Wave antenna and then expand the range of the Z-Wave so it's more localized. I don't have to use a lot of repeaters and all that stuff. So that is in this build. That's a major thing, I think, is to expand the current native Z-Wave with, remember, only on the primary controllers, but now it's primary and extender. So again, extending the extender, and we're making the extenders do more things for you guys. There's a new OSD mode called UIX, and basically what this is when we launched the software in VR, we use the OSD a lot for the video, right? If you have a hardware in VR, you use the OSD or the OSD from it via HDMI and distribute it to the house or to a specific TV or monitor. That was a little bit hard to do. We did it through the current OSD, but it wasn't really great experience. So what we did is we added this new version, and right now it's specific for surveillance, but could do more things in the future. So if you use this and you put it up on your screen, this is the image you get. So right now I get 9 images, and then that up and down is if I have more than 9, you can scroll through the different screens, and that's what you see on the TV. And then also, this is how you get that third filter. So this is on a zone page. You have the option for sources, so then you get your list of sources. The option for favorites, which we talked about with the Autonomic. And then if you're using UIX mode, you have the option for cameras. So from my media page, I can just go to cameras, see my cameras, fine. And if I press on one, what that will do is change the image on the TV to be the doorbell or porch or whatever I have, whatever I pressed. Very quick, very easy, very cool. On the HR40, we did some special features here. So if I go to I should have took images during the day, but hey, if I go to an image, there's that slider right there. So if I press on an area in that image and slide it up, it'll digitally zoom to wherever I want. And that's actually pretty cool. And then if you have an NVR, software NVR connected, that's the image, and because the image on the remote, but the image on the TV is what is actually playing at that time. So you can navigate your NVR from the HR40 and using the TV as the viewing device, not the HR40. NVR, the HR40 is controlling the NVR while the TV is displaying it. I think that's really cool. All right, there's some updates to the toggle button here. That's custom pages and how we do things in the ELAN world. Pretty powerful stuff, but we got some over the years, a couple of feature requests that we finally got to do some of them. That one of them was, since we were doing all the pages, for Config V2, we added the feature to change the name of the button. So when a toggle button is on or off, the name would be the same, right? So the name of the button is the name of the button, and the on or off, by the light on the bottom, and that was it. So now if you use the pipe, so right there you see name on, that's the pipe character, that's above the slash, and then off, when the button is on, it'll take the first nomenclature, and then if it's off, it takes the second nomenclature. So it'll change the verbiage depending on the device state. So for instance, if I have a gate, and it's not a very good picture, but you get the idea. So that's a toggle button, right? And it says gate open. And then if instead of having it just say gate, and you'd have to kind of look at the picture to know, it'll actually change the button verbiage for you. And the new style switch, right? So you just saw that there, but I can have the style, instead of being that line at the bottom, to be the switch. So it's a better way of showing the active state of the button if I wanted to, is to use that. A couple other things is the auto check. So right before 8.8, if you press that button, it would turn on no matter what. That's called auto check. So if you disable that, if you press the button, it doesn't turn on. It uses some other method via the event mapper to tell you if it's on. So maybe it's a contact closure from the gate or something else to tell you if that button is, to change the state of the button based upon an event map. So I think that's way better for some options for you guys. All right, moving on. So I think that's a big update for the toggle button, which for you guys that make a lot of custom pages will help what you do. There's some changes and updates to the lighting stuff. So the lighting areas, we did that a couple of years ago now. Big take on that. I think it's great. Hopefully you guys do too. But one of the things that we were asked to do was that main button. So right there, the first button on an area, that's the, turns the whole area on, turns the whole area off. Well, sometimes you have an area with a lot of lights and you don't never want to turn them all on, or very rarely do you want to turn them all on at the same time. So what we did is we enabled, we don't have many press and holds in the system, but this is one of them. So on the area, if you do a press and hold, you will get this screen. And what this screen does is allow you to tailor those properties in that top line. So that button on and off, I can tell you what things I want to turn on. Now, obviously, I want everything to turn off when I turn it off, but I don't want to always turn every button on. So I can tailor that, or the end user can, or you can. Then on the top bar, the primary bar of an area, you have the level. So which devices do you want to, when you move that level, to affect that? So you can change that too. And the same with color. So the primary bar of an area has a color icon if you have RGB loads in that area. So if I change the primary color, what sub loads do I want to take that color? So that is the options that you have now in the area, the lighting areas. Again, that's a press and hold, and we don't have many of them, but that is one. Then there is a filter under the scheduler. So that new scheduler we released, which does a by day for lighting, we now have it so you can do a filter. So if you see that those gears on the devices, that's the option. So if you're doing, or an end user is trying to make a schedule, you have a 200, 400 lighting loads, you can just filter by the area. You want to filter by lights or shades, so you don't have all that mix, or you want to just do scenes, or you don't want any scenes, so you could just filter by that. I think that helps tremendously. Now, utilities. So 8.8 launches our intro into appliances, and we did that through Home Connect, which is Bosch, and that includes hundreds, if not thousands, of different smart appliances across dozens of global brands, including Bosch, Siemens, Thermador, and more. And that's kind of an image of what it looks like. But this was a big request for utilities. Remember, we showed if you had a power device, for instance, we would show all the available loads to turn on or turn off, or switches or outlets. Sorry. But now we have it so you can change how each individual outlet or load reacts or shows, or not at all. So we have new options for cycle only. So just gives them the option to reboot that. Read only, which means there's no option to do anything. It just shows if it's on or off. Or you know what? Just hide it all together. So those are 3 new options for every button. There's been an update to the Alexa skill. We added some shade support. So if you say open the shades, it'll do that, or open them or close them halfway. So we added shade support to the Alexa skill. And the platform update. So when you are registering a new viewer, if you enter a password that's known in the system, it'll automatically register for you, easing some of that registration pain. Again, on the backups, this is important. I want to mention it twice. 8.8 and config v2 Config v2 uses EBK2 for backups. So all your systems right now are not on 8.8, except for the beta guys. So your backups are EBKs. So so you can't get the advanced backups without creating a new backup. So you go to 8.8, launch 8.8 on a controller and do a backup. That's how you get these features. So that's just wanted to solidify that. You can restore your files to a controller in 8.8, but if they're EBKs, you have to use config v1. I just want to make that clear. That's important. All right, there is 3 new themes. Azuro, and again, you can see we're using the nice nomenclature colors here. And this one, Azuro Live, which is a live version of the, you can see it there. It just moves the colors across the screen, which is cool. And then Blue Vortex. So 3 new themes available. There's also 2 new home pages. Now, these are optimized for the HR40 because of the screen and its portrait. It was a little specific. The ones that we had didn't really look good, and I didn't want to modify the home pages just to match the HR40 for systems that might not have the HR40 and to change something that's already in play. So I just made 2 new ones, right? So this one is current conditions and system modes, and you can see how it is. Very basic stuff, but the cool thing is it uses the new control there for the system modes. So if you have 2 system modes, it will show home and away, right? But if you have 3, you don't have to go into the home page and add a new page or add a new control and then do it across the different screens and name it and do all that. It just shows. So if you have system mode and then whatever default it's 2, and you go down and hit 3, it just shows up here. Hit 4, it just shows up here. It makes it very easy to use system modes. The other one is the forecast and system modes. Again, these were built they're specific to be clean, easy, and look good on the HR40 too. And the added benefit is those the system modes. Oh, this one, surveillance. This is something that we've gotten requests for since we've released our surveillance. And this is only on the software and VR. The people and vehicle detection was full frame, right? It was the entire frame of the screen. This is the way it was. So now what we've done is we have created a way that these in 8.8, these will take the survey area. So if you have the survey area like in this image set the way it is, people that walk by, and this is really my my world, people that walk by would always trigger it off. But now that I have it set to just my my sidewalk area or my driveway, it skips that now. So now people that walk by in the street, it does not trigger. But that is the case for once you go to 8.8, that's the way it is. So all the people and vehicle detections will be via the survey area. There is a slider now, and that is for the max occlusion. So it's 35% default. Now that's if a car drove in there and it has to be 35%, could be outside those lines and it would still count. All right, and there's new firmware for those for the autofocal cameras. The 52126 is available, and that does fix one issue. You get the red screen, you'd have to factory default it and call tech support and all that stuff, but that's all resolved. You have to just update all these cameras to the new firmware.
Yep. We've got some questions on third-party developers. I know that there's a huge API update that came out along with this. You know, our third-party developers have this update, so there may be a little bit of a catch-up phase with some third-party drivers and compatibility with 8.8. Larry, you want to touch on that?
Yeah,
quickly?
I work with all these guys a lot, and this is probably the largest update we've had to the APIs ever since. So that's going well. The idea is that we can get these media source drivers to be updated for HR40 by the time the HR40 comes out. So we still got a little bit of time on that. So I think we're in good shape. And then we added utilities to the API as well, giving them the ability to start making devices other than outside of us. And one of my favorite things is drivers. So talk about some internal drivers first. There's an update for the V88 platform. There's one scenario that we know about that we made some provisions for, and then what we did is we added 2 more sources, and that's for the chassis sources for the analog and the digital audio chassis. So those have sources now you can assign, and then we changed the verbiage from breakout from to be zone from, and then there was an issue where if you would reboot the actual hardware, the physical chassis, then the audio would mute. So we changed that too. So all those things have been updated for the V88. So lots of good stuff there. We added Denon and Marantz drivers. So we updated these for the yearly update when we included it with this build. So that's Denon and Marantz, and you can see the models there. We did another driver for Arachnus. So we did this for utilities, and we did it just like for Luxel. So if you have an Arachnus, I think it's 210 and 310 series, and the PoE switches, the active PoE ports will load, and you'll be able to reboot those. And then this is our Home Connect. This is we partnered with Bosch for the appliances, which we talked about under utilities. And there's been driver updates already for Samsung, LG, Sony, and Dish Network. However, on Dish Network, there's another slight change, and we've addressed it in this build. Is in the historical fashion with Dish Network, the arrow up and down was also the channel up and down. Somewhere along the line, they started to change it so that a channel up was and the arrow up, they're very different things. So we've made that change as well in 8.8. And there's a Jandy update. So Jandy Zodiac is the manufacturer of the cloud behind the scenes. They were since that system is cloud-based, they have very restrictions of how much you can talk on the cloud. So they made some more adjustments there, and we have updated our integration to adjust it as such. There's been a lot of external drivers, and there will be a lot more in the next coming months. But here's a list of the drivers that you'll find up in the marketplace, which is in Management Cloud. There's a whole bunch. Yeah, be sure to check that often. And I think that's it. So the resources, there's going to be the 8.8 release notes, the What's New guide. There's this video. I'm also going to cut this video up into smaller chunks since it's so long, so you'll be able to watch just the Autonomic section, just the HR40 section, and stuff like that. So we're going to do that too. And then all the integration notes as you see there.
Thanks, Ben, and thank you guys. We'll let you get your the rest of your day back. Again, sorry we went a little bit longer. Larry has a tendency to talk a lot, but it was all on good things. So any follow-up questions, reach out to your regional field representative, whether it be sales or technical. And thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you. Bye.